I've got a monster energy to power me through the rest of the day. But first, in the top right side, we are looking at the main base of the French veteran. He is a DreamHack champion. It's a long time ago, but no one will ever take that away from him. It is PtitDrogo.
And his opponent spawning down in the bottom left. It is for the Platinum Heroes, the Red Protoss player DnS.
Earlier we saw, we saw
Go ahead.
Spots and Christiana play a best of 3. And we already had the feeling that that was going to be a short and explosive one, because stylistically those are two very aggressive players. Between these two, I kind of feel like there's a good chance we'll see some proper late game, right? Like, if I think of Drogo, I definitely think of a man who likes to get a lot of Archons and just head into that standard Archon, Zealot, Stalker, Immortal composition. And DnS does not shy away from those games, and if anything, he embraces the ultra late game, where I feel like he has more motherships in PvP than almost anyone else on the European server.
Yeah, this is it's kind of neat to see the mothership come on in those matches. It's such a strange thing, because some players will play like mass carrier, but some players will just add the mothership to a regular ground composition, and it really can complicate taking engagements. And if you're not practiced against that, your opponent's really on point about sniping observers, it can be a really messy situation to deal with.
For sure, as DnS has built his first pylon in that center of Royal Blood, and he's actually going to build a robo. So for all the talk about a mothership and some potential nice late game macro oriented PvP, DnS says sure Ruddy, maybe later, not right now. Drogo has a Stalker Adept as his opening out of the first two gateways, his first two gateway units, and that's a unique one. I want to say, out of all the openings that you can go for, where it's double Adept, double Stalker, Stalker Sentry, I'd say this is the second least common besides double Sentry. That's just the one that you almost never see. Should be good for Drogo. If Drogo does not expand and his Stalker gets awfully close to finding a Drobo already, does not actually go down that little stairway, so it doesn't quite see it yet. But I feel like if you're depth scouts, no expand, and you're a little bit suspicious, why would you expand yourself? And if Drogo doesn't expand, let's see, is it an Oracle? Is it a Void Ray? Is it a Phoenix? All three are viable. Earlier we saw Christiana go for the Oracle. That didn't work out for him, but the main reason it didn't work out is just because he let his gateway units get caught by force fields over and over again. I do not expect Drogo to make the same mistake.
Yeah, neither do I. I think Drogo is going to be a lot more crisp and precise with his unit movement. Oh, look at this. Stalker does find this Adept. Good job from DnS on the I guess, scout, and will be able to deal with this. Oh, okay, that's force field. He actually blocked himself out from being able to fight this, and now he's going to lose the fight because he can't get in range of the shield battery. Oh, boy, that was one of the force fields of all time.
That was a force field, yeah, let's just put it at that. It was a force field dot, and we're moving on. As the Oracle's flying into the main base already, shield battery is done. What will Drogo do? Will he go for Pulsar Beam, or will it be a Stasis? We can see that he decided to go for Pulsar Beam, and he's doing what Bio was mentioning earlier. Even if there is a shield battery, you can still kill some probes. Now, obviously, DnS will know, okay, you open up Stargate. That means that my 4 Stalkers and the Immortal are definitely going to be more powerful than what you're working with currently. And we'll just see how this one plays out, but losing that Sentry is just painful, man, because we saw how important the 4 tools can be in that PvP earlier.
Yeah, they can be really valuable in a situation like this. And there we go, he even warps in another Sentry. This is kind of weird. Drogo's gone up to 31 probes during all this. He actually built another one just a moment ago, and he is going to lose these. Oh, okay, perhaps battery overcharge. I don't know. I feel like using that to save a gateway. Do you think that's a good call?
Maybe not, but I guess he's just very confident that DnS... Oh, he dropped the Revelation and he missed it! Oh my goodness! We memed about this for years at Home Story Cups, but Drogo missed the Revelation. That is so sad for him, because obviously A, Oracle energy is important, and B, that Observer was just sitting there in surveillance mode. We definitely see a few mistakes today that we do not normally see from players at this caliber. And I can only once more just allude to some nerves and the pressure of tournament life being on the line.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. Even if you're the most experienced player in history, you still can struggle with those nerves. Now, there are going to be 4 stalkers in the main base. Good job from DnS. I believe he spotted on the bottom side. I'm not sure, but I think he saw the second oracles coming. Meanwhile, dropping the main base, we'll be able to grab a couple of probes and even gets a stalker as well. Very nice little move right here with these immortals. And honestly, I feel like we could see an expansion from DnS. And I'd really like to see that, I think.
Well, Drogo obviously wants to expand as well with the amount of probes that he's been producing. And normally losing 3 or 4 probes, if you're on a one-base economy, you're like, oh, that's going to hurt. But Drogo had workers for days, so he can survive. He's going to queue up a Phoenix as well. The War Prism of DnS has shown up one more time. Can we take a look at what these Immortals can accomplish? They get a Sentry. They almost got the second one as well. Now the Phoenix is out though, so DnS is going to have to recall, and that is exactly what he does. And we're just going to take the game from here. Will DnS expand, or is he just going to try to stay on one base because he's worried about Drogo attacking him from one base? I don't know, but we see the Nexus go down, so it will be blinked into a Nexus for our Red Protoss. And Drogo, well, he's got the Phoenix, so he knows he doesn't have to worry about War Prism Arrest anymore. He's got the Oracle advantage over his opponent, and he too will expand, but his Twilight tech is going to be a whole lot later.
Yeah, it certainly is. This is a really cute move from DnS, by the way. So he was worried about an attack hitting right now. He used the Warp Prism to build a shield battery at the natural without a pylon there, and then just turned the Warp Prism back into its regular mode just to get that shield battery up a little bit quicker. That is a very clever little move. It's not going to mean anything in this game. It's not going to affect the outcome, but that is a really heads-up, smart, intelligent move.
It's all the little things, eh?
Exactly. The little things get me so excited in StarCraft 2. You know, I love seeing those little clever optimizations.
Yep. I mean, it's definitely a whole lot of stuff happening in this PvP as we're 7 minutes and 30 seconds in, but right now it kind of feels it's kind of dead even. 33 workers against 31. The army supplies are similar, but what DnS will have is Blink. Now, how much can you get done if you have Blink, but your opponent has 4 freaking Immortals and multiple stasis traps? I am tempted to say not a whole lot, as he does activate that first stasis trap and he blinks backward immediately. Can DnS do that 2 times in a row? The answer is yes. Well, you get excited over little things. That should have definitely excited you. There's still 4 Immortals, but without a shield battery here, this can actually become rather dicey for Drogo.
It certainly can. Now, the way the force fields were utilized, it didn't segment off any of the Immortals. Does he have another force field? No. Will almost get this one Immortal. He blinks to the top side. Very bold move. He's going to find 2 of the Immortals. He's got 2 of his own, and they're adding on a tremendous amount of DPS. Drogo, oh, the force field from him was very effective. Phoenix going to try and lift this Immortal, and Drogo should be able to get the kill with that. Sentry Tickle Beam's actually able to help out a lot there. And initially it looked good for DnS, but I think that blink to the top side was just too aggressive.
Yeah, it looked good until it didn't. I mean, Drogo had another Immortal showing up as well. But I think if it was 4 Immortals all the way, I mean, you take out 2 out of the 4 Immortals of the equation that quickly, I understand that you can get a little excited. But Drogo had Immortal number 5 and making his way down the ramp, and then there were still 3 Immortals just wailing away at these Stalkers. The force tools were good as well. DnS does still have a little worker advantage, but when it comes to the army supply, Drogo is ahead, and when it comes to the quality of the army, I want to say Drogo is way ahead. I guess one silver lining for DnS is that he did finally take out one of these oracles, so only 1 oracle to worry about instead of double oracle.
It means the shield batteries will actually manage the oracles reasonably well. But this is a gigantic lead for PtitDrogo. The only thing he doesn't have going for him is no Twilight Council. So he can't start up that +2 weapons. He can't get charge or blink. But he's more than content to just sit on the setup that he's got. And the shield battery at the natural didn't fully cover the probes.
Main base.
So a couple of them did go down. Oh, Adept Warping in the main base is going to find a couple of probes. It's going to shade to the natural. We'll get quite a few more. This is starting to get really out of hand here.
Yeah, it was like, okay, as the Stalkers are trying to get an Immortal on the other side of the map, yeah, you're like, all right, cute little move, Drogo, Oracle in the natural, Prism in the main, let's see what you can get done. He very casually gets 9 probes, because DnS was with his Blink Stalkers on the other side of the map, and I sort of get it, right, because Blink Stalkers are mobile, and you always want to see if you can get some value out of the fact that you have Blink and your opponent doesn't. But if we're losing 9 probes and we're barely getting anything done at home, that clearly was not the right call. Now, DnS will just double down on that call as he's still roaming around with the Stalkers, but it's so hard for a couple of Stalkers that are already better than Bruce to get something done against a dude who's sitting there with 4 or 5 Immortals at a time, and he's just so vulnerable at home. Drogo is finding all the damage with 2 Adepts, meanwhile DnS is finding nothing with 8 Stalkers.
Yeah, and even the War Prism that should have probably died manages to get out there. Oracle and the Natural going to compound this damage. This is really starting to stack up in a huge way. Now, Drogo, once again, the lack of that Twilight Council did slow down his advantage a little bit, but he is still completely in the driver's seat.
I'm just laughing, man. Drogo has 5 Immortals again, and Immortal number 6 is on the way. It's just like, you know what? If you keep building Blink Stalkers and you're attacking me with a couple of them, I'll just keep on building Immortals. This is definitely not standard. Now, there was a time in PvP history where we would often prioritize Immortals over Blink Stalkers, and you would hit these Immortal Zealot Archon attacks. It kind of seems that Drogo is heading that way, so he doesn't even invest in Blink. He's just gonna go for all the Immortals. He's making a 7th Immortal Steadfast. He has lost 3. He's got 7 Okay, he cancelled it. That's a shame. I wanted to see Immortal number 7. Instead, it is Le Explosion, the Gateway, as we can quote that. We got the Templar Archives finishing up, the Dark Shrine finishing up. DnS will be absolutely kicking himself for that second move out, right? Sure, the first move out, that fight in the natural, it wasn't probably what he was hoping for, but it really wasn't that bad. It's just the second move out of those 9 Stalkers was catastrophic, as he found nothing, but he took so much damage at home.
Yeah, he certainly did. Now, this is a really funny scenario. Oh, we actually have more probes going down in the 3rd base. This time it's 4 probes, but that is actually pretty manageable for the loss of, 2 Adepts, considering he's on 3 bases. This is still nice damage for Drogo, but it's not the end of the world, as some of the previous damage was really starting to stack up. If DnS can get out enough charge lots, he might be able to manage a victory because his opponent is so Immortal heavy. If you can get a few Archons, or well, actually it's going to have to be a lot of Archons, but the problem is Drogo is also going charge lot Archon.
Yeah, the problem is that Drogo had more gas, right? So it's like, okay, and what if I can get Archons? Drogo's like, cool, I'll get Archons too, and I'll get more of them than you. Yeah, maybe if Drogo does something very silly, like lose an Archon in the center of the map, but that Archon is protected by these Zealots. As more probes are dying, DTs have made their way into the natural, into the main base. I mean, DnS is just losing worker after worker. He is trying to get that Archon lead. I think Drogo's army is just way too big, man. Like, Immortals are not even the worst unit ever against Archons, as long as they are not forced to fight Archons and Zealots at the same time. And that really shouldn't happen, because Drogo's got his own Archons in the mix. DnS, I don't know how he's supposed to hold this. It feels like an unfair fight, because in these fights, often the only thing that truly matters are the Archon numbers. Well, Drogo's got more Archons, and then on top of that, he's got Immortals that just fire quicker than Stalkers do.
Yeah, that they do. And I actually really like what he's doing with his kind of excess of Immortals. He's going to force a reaction. Very nice. This will be a recall. Still gets the depower on 2 of his opponent's gateways. Got to pick up that Immortal. There we go. Does get out. Now, Drogo will kind of miss a 2-1 versus 1-0 timing, but he still has just such a powerful army. And I get that he doesn't want to attack up a ramp. It's not too bad, but I'd love to see just a rotation and just go through the middle. You know, like there's no reason to attack up this ramp.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're going to see.
Drogo, with all of his experience and all of his knowledge of StarCraft 2, will know that he has just done an insane amount of economic damage, and DnS has not been able to do the same in return. DnS killed 6 probes in this game, Drogo killed 42. On top of that, he's been building Immortals for days. Immortals really complement Archons well in these big Archon Zealot fights. I think Drogo is 1 A move away from making it happen. Even if batteries are good and an overcharge is scary, I think the army of PtitDrogo is just a whole lot better than the army of DnS here. DnS is going to try, as we even have a couple of hallucinated Zealots in the mix. I love it, Steadfast.
those are actually surprisingly helpful. They keep the Archons for Drogo safe for a while. I don't think he needed it, but a really nice way to kind of put an exclamation point on this victory in game number 1. That's actually a super heads-up play. And I feel like this makes me think that maybe I underestimated Drogo a little bit going into this fight, because it's so easy to just YOLO win when you've got a big advantage like that and just like send it and just not really cross the T's and dot the I's. But he made that clean. That was a really nice game from Drogo.
Yes, but I think even if he would have made it dirty, it would have been good enough, because his army was just bigger, and most importantly, it was better. It was more well upgraded too. But it's just, Archons or Immortals are really funny units in PvP, because there are some moments where one Immortal is a game changer, and then there are moments where 3 Immortals can look kind of useless if they get swarmed by Zealots. But when the armies get this big and the Immortals are that well protected by all the Archons that Drogo had as well, then they become really nice again. Maybe not as good as like a couple of Disruptors or Colossus would be, but they are just nice units with a crap ton of HP that fire rather quickly. And normally making their way through the Zealots is the complicated thing. But yeah, if you have 7 Archons in the front line and you've got your own Zealots too, then it's okay, right? If the Zealots wash out against one another, then your Immortals will shine again, because they have decent range. Like, Archons are fantastic in these fights, but the problem for Archons is that Archons have T-Rex arms and they can't always all fight at the same time. Immortals, they have that a bit less.
Yeah, and I want to expand on that point a little bit more even, because the fact that he built so few Stalkers meant that the units that would normally be at that position, it was a 3-tiered army. So you have the melee Zealots, you have the short-range Archons, and then you have the longer-range Stalkers and Immortals. But because there was almost no Stalkers in the army, you just have these Immortals that are these big, beefy, big daddy units, and they're just sitting there occupying the space, being way better Stalkers.
Yep. Fun game, very unique game. Definitely did not play out in the same way as we see most of our PvPs play out, where Drogo loses 3 Immortals and still has 6 to go with it. Takes the 1-0 lead. Let's go ahead and see what game 2 has in store for us. A very important one for DnS, because if DnS loses this game, his tournament life will end, and he will be saying goodbye to the ESL Masters Europe Regionals. In the top right side, that man who does have a series win record, I believe, over Drogo. It was 24 to him versus 22. But obviously, map-wise, no, Drogo has taken the lead. 76 versus 75. Can we go back to the perfect 76-76? Top right side, Platinum Heroes, DnS.
And his opponent playing an extremely clean game number 1 for Alter Esports. It is PtitDrogo.
I still think after the first big attack of DnS, where of course maybe that Blink was a bit over-eager and that 5th Immortal really tripped him up, and I can't even blame him for it, because if you see 4 Immortals, you think that's scary enough, but he did a great job in clearing out those stasis traps. He didn't even just blink a unit forward, no, he ran the units inside of the stasis trap, activated it, and then blinked backwards. So I understood that he thought that was going to be a great fight. In the end, it wasn't that great, but that's not really where it went wrong. It's just the moment that he returned home, he grabbed 9 Stalkers, he ran to the other side of the map, and he just couldn't get anything done against all the Immortals of Drogo there. And meanwhile, Drogo's like, I have 1 Oracle, and I've got 1 Warp Prism, and that's going to be good enough for me, because that Warp Prism drops 2 Adepts in the main base, it finds probe damage, the Oracle shows up in the natural, that one finds probe damage, and I think it's really that mid-game phase where Drogo just got way ahead versus his opponent.
Yeah, it certainly is. It was a really just nice display from Drogo, and because DnS was trying to find value with the Blink Stalkers, it made his defense at home even more challenging, because he was splitting his attention up, and that allowed Drogo to get even more than maybe he should have on paper. But yeah, Drogo's experience really showing through there. Now we do see in this game neat little bit of series preparation from DnS. He goes for the fake proxy pylon after going for a real proxy in the previous game, and it's gonna cause Drogo to maybe, expect that there's a little more here than there actually is.
We will keep an eye on it, and we'll see if that works out or not. DnS drops a pylon on the other side of the map, but that pylon is obviously going to get cancelled real quick the moment he saw there are 3 stalkers there. That is just not something you ever want to pylon block. It is cool to see that Drogo just seems to be fond of that 1 adept, 1 stalker opening. It's one of these things where you're not going to get a whole lot done, ever. But it's just good enough to be safe at home, because obviously 3 stalkers still have a lot of micro potential. And then with that first step, at least you have a bit of map vision, where sure you can go double stalker and try to get that map vision, but there is one big problem sometimes with double stalker, is that if you want to get as much vision as possible, you split them up. And if you split up your stalkers and they run into 2 stalkers of the opponent, things can snowball so quickly. So I kind of like this opening by Drogo. It feels like it's a safe opening that will still allow you to have map presence and scout. As this first Oracle just very casually flies into the main base, gets 4 probes, and all the probes have been pulled. DnS got to be fuming right now. This is way more damage than a Oracle is ever supposed to find this early on.
Yeah, this is actually pretty disastrous damage already. And it's extra unfortunate because he went for the double stalker, double sentry, got the hallucination scout, saw the Stargate, and then didn't think like, hey, this could be the second Oracle. Or at least it wasn't something that immediately jumped to his mind, because he could have gotten units in position with that. Drogo, oh, that's a little greedy. Oh, wow, okay, he gets out of there. Grabs 1 more probe. And, oh, very nice micro with the second Oracle. Gets another probe behind this. And just extending his small little lead. And it's starting to get not so small. 6 probes is pretty decent at this stage in the game.
Yeah, 6 probes is definitely very nice. DnS is going to have quicker blink, and maybe that's something that he can work with as the other Oracle shows up again. Now, I do think it's going to be a kill on the Oracle, but it is 3 additional workers falling. So that 6 worker deficit becomes a 9 worker deficit for at least a little while. That's DnS just not quite as on point as he needs to be to duke it out with Drogo. As Drogo needs to be careful here, though, because obviously Blink is very close to finishing up for DnS. This can actually get very interesting, Statfast, because it's the final countdown. Blink is done right now. What is Drogo going to do? He's going to recall, but I think he will still lose 3 out of the 5 stalkers. No, only ends up losing 2. Oracle flies into the natural, by the way. There is a shield battery there, but still annoying. How much can DnS get done with this nice little window where he's got Blink, his opponent doesn't have Blink, and no shield batteries either in the natural?
Yeah, I think this is the time for DnS to send it. He is going to be able to get a lot done. The shield battery is late. The sentries show up. Probe pull was very early, but there's just not enough stalkers here. And I love how decisive DnS has been right here. And it is going to win him the game. There is 0 army supply right now for Drogo. Very nicely done from DnS. It was an excellent start for Drogo, but he tried to get a little bit too aggressive. And he ends up running into a brutal anti-timing with that blink finishing. Well done from DnS. Pounces.
A whole lot of things went well for Drogo there until it all fell apart very quickly. I think throwing away that 1 Oracle that got 3 extra probes and then it died, I still think that's not worth it, even though it already did a lot. But it's just so nice to have double Oracle, because double Oracle is something that your opponent will always respect. They do not have the confidence to move out while only leaving 1 stalker at home against double Oracle. If you have a shield battery in your main, you have a shield battery in your natural, and you kill one of the 2 Oracles, the player with quicker blink will immediately have that confidence. Now I can move out. Now it's safe. I might have to pay attention to my minimap for a stasis trap, but I can move out. So by losing that Oracle, he gives DnS the confidence to move out. And yeah, then to make matters even worse, Drogo just stuck around a little bit too long. He was playing a very clean, beautiful game, but it was all adding up. But yeah, then there's that tiny window where you don't have blink, your opponent does have blink, you try to run away, you're forced to recall, you still lose 2 units quickly, and he just couldn't get enough units up at home to even turn it into a remotely decent fight. And it's so hard, right? When your opponent has blink, you don't have blink, it's like, how am I going to out-micro my opponent? That's not a fair fight.
Yeah, no, certainly not. And even with those 2 extra stalkers, it would have been tough. But you could see that Drogo knew the danger he was in. He pulled those probes, and if he does have those 2 stalkers, at the very least, it, like you said, feels like a fairer fight, and maybe he can buy time for that shield battery. Maybe he buys time for blink, but instead, DnS does not hesitate, goes for it, and will even the game at 1 apiece. Now we're going to game 3. This is where the rubber meets the road.
I mean, this is the way that it should be, right? If these guys, before this best of 3 started, played 150 maps against each other and the score was 75-75, it only makes sense that we get a game 3. 76-76 historically between these two, but let's see who gets a very important one. Let's see who can still dream of making it into the playoffs, or for who the journey ends. Neo Humanity is going to be our final battleground. In the bottom right side, we're looking at the main base of that DreamHack Leipzig 2016 champion. Has played a good series so far, but he still needs to get the job done here in Game 3. It is PtitDrogo.
And his opponent spawning up at the top left for the Platinum Heroes. It is the Red Protoss player DnS.
After looking at the first 2 games that fast, who do you favor coming into Game 3?
Well, that's such a tough question because they both made big plays. They both made big mistakes. For me, it's still a coin flip because Drogo, I think I slightly favor Drogo, but all it took was that little misstep and DnS pounced and did not let go. If Drogo plays the way he did in game number 1, I think he's going to win this series. But I think if he makes even 1 or 2 small slip-ups, I think DnS will punish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very hard to call between these two. The numbers don't lie, and so far after these first 2 games, it's like, all right, DnS could have won game 1, but then he didn't, and then he made one big mistake moving out with, well, it wasn't even a mistake, it's just that he couldn't get anything done, and Drogo ran away with it. And in the second game, it was actually Drogo who just did a lot of things correctly, but then unfortunately stuck around a tiny bit too long, got punished in the worst way possible. And here we are. For the first time in the best of 3, Drogo is not going to go Stalker Adept. He's going to switch it up and go Stalker Sentry instead. And that could absolutely have something to do with the map, where he just feels that this is a map where it makes sense to go for 2 units, if not 4 units, and then expand and take the game from there.
Yeah, I certainly think so. And the fact that they're both going for that early Sentry in order to get that early hallucination really does tell you how much they appreciate the importance of this matchup. Like, this is the map right now. You know, when you're down 0-1 in a series, it's a different feeling of being at 1-1, because not only are you about to be eliminated, you're also about to stay alive for the next round and stay alive and head to that final do or die Sunday. So it really does make sense to me that they've both gone for this early hallucination scout opening.
DnS is the one who's going for the slightly quicker Twilight, but obviously the timings are way closer than they were in that previous game. But I do expect both of them to just play Blink here. Now, there is a chance that DnS will go for a rather quick, cheeky Dark Shrine. As Bio is showing us, a hidden pylon in the bottom left side. And a pylon this early on, if we have a Twilight counter at home, often only leads into one thing, and that's the Invisible Man with a sword. Now, DnS will queue up Blink immediately, so it could also just be for a gateway. But if it's Blink against Blink, then it doesn't really make too much sense to go for a super early proxy gateway, right? Because what are you going to get done? It's like, okay, you have Blink, you're going to attack into the guy that has Blink too, and same expand timing, so that doesn't really add up, and that's why the Dark Shrine was way more likely.
Yes, and that is a really clever move here from DnS. He has cut a couple of probes in order to make this happen, because he wants to show Drogo that everything is normal. So Drogo sat around, he looked at the Twilight Council, he said, hey, is that thing, does it have its weird glowing lights? Are they glowing a little bit faster than normal? I need to see you start this upgrade. And he does. Now, will Drogo notice that the probe count is lower at the natural than it maybe should be at this point? Because if he does, he might be able to sniff something out, and it looks like he did. He starts up the robo, but is this going to be in time? It is actually going to be... It's going to be pretty close.
I picked up on it, man. Look at this hallucinated Phoenix right now that's going in the bottom left side. It misses it ever so barely. But it is very obvious that for Drogo, the alarm bells went off wait a minute, I've got 16 probes in my natural, you've got 12, absolutely nothing happened, we're doing the same thing, and my third Nexus is actually a little bit quicker than yours. I mean, this is where you can really see the spidey senses are tingling. Drogo hasn't seen the Dark Shrine, he has not been able to confirm it, but he just knows. He's like, this ain't right, I know you're a good player, no way that I'm ahead without anything happening in this game. Great game sense here by Drogo, man. He is supply block. No, you need to kill a probe. Drogo, you need to kill a probe. You need to kill a probe. It's a massive supply block.
Oh, this is actually so brutal, but he waits for the Nexus to complete, and that means he's going to have probes killed whether he likes it or not. 5 probes already going down. DnS already taking the worker lead. He recognizes, yeah, Drogo sees this. He's got what he needs to defend. He won't die to this, but he is going to lose a lot of workers. Wow. This has been an extremely successful proxy Dark Shrine out of DnS.
That's so sad for Drogo, man, because I actually really love the way that he put 2 and 2 together. He didn't see all of it, but he saw enough. He knew that was a painful supply block and a half. Waited in the end, indeed, for the Nexus to finish up, as the Dark Templars will be saved, morphing into an Archon. Archons have a lot of HP. DnS gets ahead after his Dark Shrine opening. I would not say it's necessarily game over, but it dealt a lot of direct damage, right, with all the probes going down, and also a lot of indirect damage. If we can just take a look at that beautiful income advantage graph that BO has already showed us a couple of times, that is just a very big lead that DnS created for himself over the last 45 seconds when these DTs were active.
Yeah, and it is tough to like make that call under the gun, but if he had killed a probe, he probably, it's weird to say, loses maybe 5 or 6 less workers, loses a lot less mining time. It is still a game that is close enough to even that certainly Drogo can still win. And he even is ahead on his 4th Nexus timing, but that could have been a much better defense overall. Still, he, like you said, I really am impressed that he was able to make the read. That was actually such a championship caliber type play.
Yeah, no, the read was great. He clearly knew, but and then unfortunately the execution wasn't quite there. A very painful supply block where even if it may only seem like, oh, what was that, 5 to 10 seconds? Well, let DTs do their thing for 10 seconds. And we all know how much that can really hurt. Drogo is still in it. He's just in a bit of trouble. But sometimes cannons and batteries can absolutely make up for a 20-30 army supply deficit. At the moment, that's not happening at all. Mostly because DnS has just been investing in a whole lot of other stuff. His gateways were built a little bit quicker. I do expect DnS to take that army supply lead in the near future. Then we just wonder, will DnS attack, or is he going to sit back forever? Obviously, the longer this game goes on, the less of an impact that DT harassment will have on the outcome of this game.
Yeah, certainly. It is going to even things out. Now, we do see a double forge coming in from Drogo here. Taking the PvZ lessons from Hero and saying, PvP, yeah, we all go Stalker Charge Lot now. Upgrade's good. But we've got DnS moving in for the attack on the right side. Good concave from Drogo. Oh, nice snipe on the Observer to make sure that DTs can't be warped in. But Drogo's still going to push him back. And Battle Report shows us that it is... it's still a slightly better fight, I think, for Drogo. Oh, he actually sniped down another Stalker. Good job. DnS not quite paying attention initially.
Yeah, DnS is the one who sniped the Observer there, but Drogo does have a cannon, so he doesn't have to worry too much about DTs. There is also 4 Stalkers and an Observer on patrol in the natural for Drogo. So Drogo not even defending this with his entire army, as Drogo feels that he just needs better positioning. Will go for that blink, very decisive. I love it. This time around, it was Drogo sniping one of the Observers. As Drogo goes forward, he wants to get the Prism. He gets the Prism, but after the Stalkers already got warped in. And I'm afraid for Drogo that was just a blink too far. He lost so much trying to get that Prism there.
Yeah, that was a really expensive blink, and I think you said it best. It was after the warp in came in. It feels so good when you snipe your opponent's warp prism like that. But when it comes at the cost of as much DPS as he lost, really made a big difference. Also in both, well, this is a little bit premature on the Guardian Shield pop, but in a previous fight, despite an excellent concave for Drogo, DnS was fighting with a Guardian Shield against no Guardian Shield from his opponent. However, now that upgrade lead actually will kick in for Drogo. It could be rather, I mean, it could make a small difference.
Yeah, small. Obviously, Stalkers, I feel like armor doesn't even really matter all that much. Because most of the time we're going to try to micro our Stalkers back by the time that the shields have disappeared. As Drogo blinks forward again, he believes that the Zealots can make the difference this time around. And this really did seem like a much better fight for Drogo, at least initially. But DNS does have the reinforcements. Drogo is forced to disengage. But I think that went a lot better than the previous one, that's for sure. His Zealots found a lot of surface area. And DNS's Zealots were kind of bottled up in the middle of his army.
Yeah, initially it didn't look so good for Drogo. We do see another observer snipe. Good job from Drogo there getting that very quickly. And, I mean, this is going to be very difficult. Nice blink forward, takes down the War Prism. Now, we are back to the defensive warpins of DNS, so Drogo's got to be careful about overcommitting. This is a lot of Stalkers for DNS. Drogo will get out, but, I mean, now it's actually a huge army supply lead and probe lead for DNS. Has Drogo just not been building workers this whole time?
Well, he's been under a lot of pressure, to be fair. He was like at the verge of almost dying, so I understood that he maybe felt he couldn't get too many probes out, and his bases were well saturated. If you have no Temple Archives, if you don't plan on building any Archons, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to go up to 80 workers, right? If you only have 4 bases, you can't really put them anywhere. It's just that I think Drogo got a bit carried away. It's funny how Stalker Zealot can be amazing against pure Stalker, but there's also a moment where I feel that pure Stalker almost becomes better again, and I think this is kind of that moment where the Stalker ball is just too big that the Zealots don't even know where they want to start. It's very weird, and obviously you need good Stalker micro, but if there's one thing that we trust these guys at, it's their ability to micro the Stalkers. There's a couple Zealots in the mix as Drogo with another forward blink snipes Prism number 3. More Zealots coming in. Zealots definitely doing their thing, having a pretty serious impact on this fight. It's just that eventually your Zealot numbers will dwindle. DNS has a couple of extra Stalkers coming in. I think DNS is just too rich and has too many Blinky boys.
Yeah, it's really coming down to that economy now. That high-yield gas base means he's able to really efficiently mine mine with the gas. He's got a 23-worker lead. We are going to see the 3-2 of Drogo coming online soon, but is this going to be enough? I don't think so. The one thing I will say is that Drogo has done an excellent job of sniping observers consistently since that first fight where DNS was able to snipe his. And he could warp in some DTs and maybe try and get something done. Oh, that was a weird blink forward. Drogo just does not have the numbers, though. This is not the fight for him.
Drogo also doesn't have a dodge, right? So it'd be very hard to warp in DTs.
Yeah. Had that backwards.
No. I'm afraid for Drogo that it's just not going to quite work out. He has really done his best to make something of this game, but DNS got ahead after the DTs and never truly let go. That first blink on the War Prism, I just think was a very expensive one. Drogo's doing a good job in at least spending every single penny that he has. It's just not really a fair fight. DNS is richer. He's got more stuff. He's got more micro potential in his army. I'm afraid for Drogo, who was awfully close to potentially winning this best of 3 2-0, because he was off to a great start on Ancient. Will actually get eliminated here in the group stage of the ESL Masters. He's going to try with a battery overcharge. We all believe in the battery overcharge and the power that these things can give some of your units, but it just feels that DNS has way too much.
Yeah, it certainly does, and this warp-in will not be interrupted. We've got 13 gateways here for DNS. Even that is a little bit of overkill. Hard to spend that, but still it means the reinforcements are so active. And there we go. There's the big blink forward from DNS. He is going to close this game out, and he will stay alive and heads on to Do or Die Sunday.